I'm always torn between whether to do something with the graphics, which some people like,
Hmm.
and some people don't like the graphics. They just want a natural start, and I'm never sure which way. Which
Right.
which do you prefer?
Let's just do a natural start.
Yeah,
Let's
that's what
let's
I
just
like to
jump
do.
in. Yeah, me too.
So I think it's another thing is I can't tell as easily as I can on a regular Substack app whether we're live or not. But
Yeah, we'll
there we
get
go, we're
her.
live.
I'll
We're
pull up.
live. I can see it.
We're live. We're live.
I saw your son was photobombing you today during your live shot.
Yeah, was he?
It was so
That
funny.
doesn't surprise me.
He's such a ham. Hello,
Yeah.
everybody. Welcome to a very special edition. I always say this, but this one really is a very special edition of Narrative Live because the amazing and talented Ellie Leonard is here, and we're going to go through a lot of the Epstein files that, a lot of us see the actual documents. A lot of us write about the documents. You might see
Hmm.
excerpts of it, but we're going to go into the absolute, the real nitty gritty, look at the actual files together and some of these key documents. Some of them come from what you've been looking at, which has been so incredible. Ellie has been this look into the relationship between Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein. Steve Bannon, after he left the White House, sort of struck up a friendship, I guess you could call it that,
Yeah.
with Jeffrey Epstein. So
Yeah.
tell me a
It's
little bit
very
about what that
strange.
was.
Okay. So I've been, we got this big file dump last week that I have been very tediously filtering through all these different emails. And there's a lot of things in there that are just unnecessary. Like I was mentioning with you and Dean earlier, there's full books photocopied into the files. There's everything's a JPEG. So they could have made this a PDF for us to easily flip through, but they made them
No, they wanted
individual
to make it really
photos of
difficult.
every single
Yeah,
page.
I
So
noticed that.
and if you accidentally click out of something, then you have to be like, oh my gosh, where was I? What number was I on? So it's meant to be very complicated. So anyway, part of this, I would say almost the one thing that has the most to it seems to be the Bannon emails. There are the Michael Wolff emails in there. There's the Kathy Rumler emails. There is Ehud Barak. There's a lot of talk of Bill Gates. But the definitely the central focus of the emails is Steve Bannon and his relationship, which he has since tried to downplay, but there's no denying it in these emails. This was not him coaching Epstein or trying to help him or like teach him to be better with his life. Like this was a bro relationship, and it starts out very, I don't want to say light, but it definitely changes over time to where now I am I'm reading into the last year of Epstein's life, and Bannon definitely has the upper hand in these emails. He is the one that Jeffrey Epstein is seeking approval from, and wants to know if things are okay and what can he do and can we make a movie, and he wants things from Bannon, whereas in the beginning it was Bannon asking things of Epstein. But you can see that Epstein is sort of wilting and fading away in this kind of isolation that he's created for himself while he's under surveillance from the FBI in the last year of his life.
Oh, that's so interesting. So Bannon comes out
Yeah.
of the White House. He is
Yeah.
feeling dejected. He's been fired. He lost essentially to Ivanka and Jared, and he's
Yes.
seeking help from somebody, and he finds that help in Jeffrey Epstein, and then Jeffrey Epstein is caught up in his own turmoil because he gets
Mm-hmm.
arrested, and suddenly he needs some help from his new friend Bannon. So that's a really interesting
Yes.
thing that turns around there. Uh,
Right.
yeah. Is my audio okay, by the way? It sounds a little weird to
Yeah, I
me.
can hear you great.
Okay, good. And
Sounds
I'm
good to
sorry,
me.
it says narrative contributor there. My AI
Oh
came
no,
up with that. So
I can be a narrative
you're
contributor.
officially a narrative contributor, says the AI. So I'm fascinated because Bannon is such an interesting guy. I mean, he's been around
Mhm.
for a very long time. Was a Goldman Sachs guy originally in his career,
Yeah.
became involved in the creative industries, did some really weird movies in his time, or scripts for movies.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then suddenly, landed up in politics. And I've always thought his roots led us back to China a lot of the time. When I was doing the initial
Mhm.
investigation into the original Trump Russia, he seemed to have a lot of connections to China, not necessarily
Yeah.
to the Chinese Communist Party, but to this clique inside the Chinese Communist Party, which is,
Mhm.
I guess you could call them like a mob if you want, like an organized criminal
Right.
element inside the Chinese Communist Party, which holds a lot of sway, but is not maybe not directly linked, but probably still linked to the to Xi and his power center
Right.
over there. So that's just interesting as a background, because we know as well that Epstein had contacts with both the Israeli former prime minister, but also with Putin and various people in Russia. We know that Russia and China were aligned in all of this exercise to put Donald Trump into the
Mhm.
White House, and so you can see how there's some sort of congruity there. You know, if Epstein is talking a lot to the Russians, if Bannon is talking to that Chinese, and their aims are similar,
Mhm.
um, it's just interesting from an influence perspective how that might have
Right.
influenced the whole situation and why they would have hung out together during that time. But he also does the 60 minutes training, right? They come up with this idea of doing a
So
rehearsal
stupid.
for 60 minutes interview, as if who would want to watch? I
It's
mean, people would want to watch that, but it would be an impossible interview, really, in
it
reality.
is such it's like watching a psychology experiment because you're sitting back and watching these two men, and the dynamic of power keeps shifting.
Mhm.
So you start with Epstein kind of on the throne. Bannon has been fired. He, from all accounts, thinks Epstein is involved with the CIA, which is his dream. So he wants to get in with Epstein to see if he can get back in the White House and work with these CIA guys. Again, over
Say
time,
that
that sort
again.
of
I'm really
shifts.
interested in what you just said there. Say
Okay,
that
go
again.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, just tell me that sentence again. So Bannon wants to be in the CIA, and so does Epstein. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so there's this always this background idea that Epstein has been involved with intelligence, right?
Right.
Like that's you've talked about it, most
Mm.
people have talked about it, that he's involved with intelligence with Israel, that he's involved with intelligence with the US. He knows way more things than he should know as just a civilian. I do have to say, he has way more influence with government officials than you or I would ever have. And I think once Bannon was kicked out, he thought that Epstein was the person to go to because he always wanted to work in intelligence. And so I think ultimately in the beginning that was something that connected the two men, was he thought that Epstein could somehow help him in that
Mhm.
way. I don't think that ever came to fruition, but over the course of time, that dynamic shifted to where Epstein was going, I need you to talk to this person for me. And Bannon was still meeting with really large government officials in many countries well after the time when he had been fired. And then it sort of breaks down and it becomes a little catty. It becomes a little like
Oh,
mean
really?
girl.
Competitive.
And they start talking about what like government officials think of Donald Trump, and like, she thinks he's just a big jerk. He's just a bully. He hates him. And so you hear all the like background banter that these, major presidents of other countries have said about the things that they hate about Donald Trump, because the whole conversation eventually just circles around Donald Trump's presidency, because Epstein thinks he's an idiot, thinks he can't tie his shoes. Bannon obviously has bad blood with the president because he's just been fired. They hate Jared. They want Jared out of the, but they start talking about how somebody's trying to get Jared out, but that person is also, Jared's also trying to get that person out of the White House. And you hear all this kind of like catty background information on what goes on in the White House to make it sound like it's just like high school. Like you have high school running your government right now.
Right.
And so it's all this information that I don't think anybody was ever meant to hear. And it's just hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Like I'm time coding it so we know how long these email chains
Oh,
lasted
good.
per day. Always in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. These men are
Well, that's
emailing
interesting
it. They never
too.
sleep, never sleep. Yeah.
Well, you know what? A lot of this is, they are just desperately trying to influence the presidency throughout all this, because the presidency has a lot of power, so they're trying to get policy through. They're trying to get ideas through. The closer they are to the ring, the more influence they have, and the more influence they can peddle to other governments and to other institutions. I call it like a shadow world that exists between the real intelligence, which is people who actually work for the CIA, and then there's this
Mm,
murky private sector intelligence world that sits alongside the intelligence
right.
world. And inside there's all sorts of dirty business that goes on, and favors that are done, and contracts that are executed. Very hard to see those people. It's very murky. You might search them online and never find out any details about them, because
Mm,
they're just sort of anonymous shadow people, and yet they have so
right.
much power And Bannon and Epstein strike me as being like that, although of course they've certainly found their way to the limelight. So
Right.
let's look at some of these selections of emails that you have here, because they're very telling, and I think that they reveal a lot about this relationship. Plus, there's a lot of news in here. So the first one is this one. You can take me through this one. It's the New York
Right. So
Times one.
this is from Kathy Rumler. Rumler.
Yeah.
She was the counsel for Obama, and she is sort of, because as you go through here, I'm prepared to hear that anybody is in these files. Like, I'm prepared that people that I like are going to show up in
Oh
these
yeah.
files. She, so far, is the closest person to Obama that has shown up in the files. She was his counsel. She had a very weird dynamic with Jeffrey Epstein that um, very flirtatious, very
Mm.
flirtatious. I think she might have had a thing for him. I think they keep referring to this woman called Bannon's wife or Bannon's girlfriend that's unnamed. I think this is who they're referring to. I don't know that she actually ever was his girlfriend, but I think she's just a person that they kept in their wheelhouse
Mm.
as like a woman in government, but also they all had a thing for her.
This is Kathy Rumler that you're with.
Yes.
So she's also the was, maybe is, the chief counsel for J.P. Morgan.
Oh, interesting.
So she had a different relationship as well with Jeffrey Epstein through the bank. So she
Right.
would have find all of this stuff really interesting. In fact, that they had such a close relationship is rare, is
Hmm.
really revealing about how much JP Morgan really knew, because here's their chief counsel in such regular contact with them. And this is, this is 2018. I don't know what year she landed up leaving JP Morgan, or how long she was
Hmm.
there for, but I know that there's overlap between her time there and her time with Epstein. And, at that time, they'd already washed their hands, or almost had washed their hands of him completely, because,
Right.
he'd been fired in 2013 from the bank. By
Right.
2019, they were filing all these reports about him. And
And
here she is, still talking to him,
I'm Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, she was talking to him definitely during the Obama administration. But the interesting thing about her is she actually wrote the blurb that they were going to send, that he and Bannon were going to send to the Washington Post to
Ah,
talk about how great he was and how he'd been reformed. Like, she wrote it for them, and she said, "This is what you're going to say."
isn't that
I don't know
crazy?
if that ever got sent to the Washington Post, but it definitely came from her. So she was helping them out quite a bit.
So interesting to see her whitewashing this guy while she's probably still at the
Mhm.
bank. And it's what she's saying here.
Yeah.
She's saying, do you want to read this for us?
Yeah. So this is from this is from Epstein to Kathy Rumler, and he said, "You see, I know how dirty Donald is. My guess is that non-lawyers, New York biz people, have no idea what it means to have your fixer flip." Um, this is the idea that he had people who were trying to make him look better and act better and be presidential, but if they were to flip on him, that he has a lot of dirt, and Epstein has a lot of dirt on him.
This was also during, if I'm not mistaken, Michael Cohen had just been raided or arrested,
Mhm.
or something
I
happened. I
think it
think,
was right after
yeah.
this. It was
A-
right after. I think it was in December.
and then he flipped on Donald Trump. I think that was at least the rumor,
Hmm.
that he was flipping on Donald Trump. So, much of it's a direct reference to Michael Cohen, but it certainly suggests that, how significant it is to have someone like
Right.
Michael Cohen flip on Donald, because he would know all the dirt about Donald Trump.
Right.
Now, it also says to me that Jeffrey Epstein would know a lot of dirt about Donald Trump,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
would know how dirty he is, because otherwise, how would he say this? He would only
I
know
think
this.
that was the
Yeah,
ultimate intent, was
yeah.
he knew everything. And I think there were a lot of Michael Cohens. I think there were it was very risky to put Donald Trump in the White House, because there was a lot of people who know a lot of dirt, because he's a braggart, right? When he does things and he does shady business, he wants people to think he's bigger, better, whatever. And so he didn't hide those things from the people in his circle. So there's a lot of people like Michael Cohen who could turn on him, but it just is, it's timing.
Right. I mean, it's so true. And maybe they are turning on him. We just don't even know that they're all doing it right
Right.
now. This next one is really interesting. So this
Yeah.
is, will you tell us what this is? It's
Okay. So
it's
this is from
invitation.
Epstein. This is in
Yeah.
the conversation with Bannon. And they're talking about doing this documentary to kind of reinforce that he's a changed man and he's a good person and he's reformed, and meanwhile trying to bring legal back in to erase his internet history and all the things online that are about him, but also to disprove all the things that he was arrested for in the first place, as well as show how awful his first sentence was. They think that it was much too harsh, which is, of course, the sweetheart deal, which was not
Yeah, there
harsh at
was
all.
hardly a sentence at
Um,
all. I mean,
so
it's ridiculous.
so they start throwing these things out that are just, I mean, objectively so silly. And one of them is in this documentary that Bannon is making on him to reform him and show what a good guy he is. They want to bring the victims in, not only to interview them, but to confront them and to force them to testify. So he says, force them to testify on video face to face if they need encouragement, which is obviously a threat, right? You don't force somebody to do something if they need encouragement. Like, he wanted those girls to come on camera and be forced, under pressure, which is why they would agree to it in the first place, I don't know, but be forced to recant everything that they had said about them. And that's not really a documentary. That's just a bunch of confessions that they wanted to,
Yeah, that's just like a
compile to
mob
get him off
witness
the hook.
hit. It's like
Yes. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not how it's ridiculous the way he's talking about
It's
them,
ridiculous.
that, the girls can be forced to testify like they're still girls. A lot of these people were women
Yeah.
who many years later and, like in their 40s or 50s even, and,
Hmm.
still thinking that you can object them to this kind of, forcing them to testify on video. It's like
Right.
it's just treating them like they have no power, no say, and then to
Hmm.
explain this face to face if they need encouragement, which sounds so sinister to
Sounds so,
me.
yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
just
just like a mob hit. Like, if
yeah,
they need encouragement, we will force them.
yeah, it's really gross,
Yeah.
and it really did reveal so much
Mhm.
about all these. They hadn't changed one bit. I mean, they might have pretended to each other that look they changed, but they had not at all evolved in any way. And I don't know if they ever did
No.
actually. Yeah.
The entire conversation is just denial about there being anything wrong. Like, and then when they do talk about, like, if it's just referred to as prostitution, which is how he liked to refer to it, um it was a joke among his friends. It would just be a joke that he just liked prostitutes and, good old Jeffrey. But the idea that they were ever underage, the idea that he didn't receive an easy sentence, like all these things that we know to be true,
Mm.
the entire conversation for like 3 years is denial.
Yeah.
Right? He thinks he's in his own world.
Yeah. Look, he's covering up, obviously, and he's covering it up right till the very end. This last one is just jaw dropping. So you've got Bannon and Epstein talking about, we'll set it up for us. They're talking about
Right.
a trafficking center.
Yeah. So this is the same day. This is again 5:33 in the morning. So they talk late into the night, early in the morning. I don't really know when they sleep, but they're talking about. So he says this is from Bannon, and he says, besides curing breast cancer, what about establishing the major center for human trafficking, teenage prostitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is a global problem that needs to be solved. So he thinks that they can create like the Jeffrey Epstein human trafficking center to show that, the dangers of global human trafficking among children, like like it's
It's
just so objectively stupid that he would have his name on a child trafficking, you
yeah.
know, charity or what. Like, it's objectively, we can look at it and be like, well, that is ridiculous. But they literally thought that that's what they could do to help improve his image.
Well, I mean, that's how rich people often do fix their images, is by, starting these centers, by these endowments.
Hmm.
But in this case, it's so, it's just so unaware of what he's, even if his actions aren't what they were perceived to be outside, and I believe they're probably much worse
Right.
than we know. But even if they buy their argument that that the public is being misled into believing all these terrible things about him, even with that, why would you even consider this as a good idea? Because it's like, it's just, who would buy it?
Like, make a donation or something. Like, don't start your own. It's
Yeah.
very well, and yeah, I think he's so isolated at this point, and he's becoming this hermit that's like living alone in his house, and
You mentioned this earlier, and I was
he's
really fascinated by what you said
yeah,
about him calling, what are you calling him, Uh,
Oh, the pervert hermit. He was calling
yeah,
himself the pervert hermit because he was sort of making a joke based on what he's being called by the media, but he is becoming this hermit who's very isolated and like pacing in his giant home in Manhattan. Like there's nobody, I think there's not a lot of people coming to his house at this point.
right.
And so
That's true.
he is living this really isolated, freaked out life because he's used to being on top. He's used to having, a certain amount of things happen per day. He's getting none of that at this point, and he's under the impression that he can literally clean his history. He can clean his record. He
Mm.
can clean the internet. He can clean the media, and then he can start fresh with a brand new persona where he's charitable, where he helps women and girls. You'll hear in some of the interviews that he has with Bannon that he's like, I'm really into the Time's Up movement, which was another version of
Right.
Me Too. Like, in what world would that have ever been true? But it was him floundering and trying to reclaim himself because he didn't, like, everybody had left him at this point, and he
Can you
he
imagine?
really just had his money in his homes.
And your only link to the outside world is Steve Bannon. I mean,
Steve
it's
Bannon. Yes.
horrible, really, when you think about
Yeah.
what an existence that would be. There's a clip of Bannon as well that he sends
Yeah.
Epstein. I'm going to play that in a second, but I don't know if you saw this one. Yeah, it may have come up in
Yes.
your search, but it's really interesting because somewhere in here, this
Mhm.
is Jeffrey talking to Bannon, and he's asking, "Do you know Bill Barr, CIA?"
Mhm.
Now,
He comes up a lot.
Bill Barr knows Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein knows Bill
Yes.
Barr from the days when Dalton School, when Bill Barr's father hired him as a math teacher. So they certainly would have crossed paths. Now, at the time, yeah, Bill Barr was working at the CIA. He was still training at the CIA, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
and also landed up working as the conduit from the congressional committees involved at that time in the post Watergate years to the CIA. So he's got his connections to the intelligence world. That is pretty known. But it
Yeah.
is interesting that, the date would be fascinating. As we're talking about December, 6th, 2018.
2018. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it comes along with this Alex Acosta uh, email here, or this article, which says earlier this week, pedophile Jeffrey Epstein bought his way out of a lawsuit that would have given him his victim and given some of his victims the opportunity to testify about his predatory and criminal conduct. Victims
Mhm.
never got that opportunity when Epstein faced criminal charges because Alex Acosta, then the lead prosecutor, now the Secretary of Labor, um, Jeff Epstein, off with the, I don't know, that's
Oh, let Epstein
a
off.
little bit. So, with a ridiculous lenient sentence, despite having committed hideous sex offenses. So this goes on, and there's an interesting quote here, which maybe we don't see in this email, but it's from Marco Rubio of all people, saying how horrified he was by Jeffrey Epstein's limited sentence. I wonder if you would say that today. But in the middle of all of this is this question that Epstein is asking: is do you know Bill Barr to Bannon?
Right.
Uh,
Well, and I
yes, he would.
believe I I I could be wrong, but I believe um and I don't know how I would go back and find this. It's somewhere in the emails, but I think Bannon said he knew Bill Barr for many, many, many years.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's true. Like, somebody said I've known him for 50 years, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't Epstein. Um,
And
which
that's
is
not surprising
curious.
because they
Yeah.
were in the obviously, he was the attorney general at the time.
Hmm.
I don't know if they crossed paths, but I'm sure they did. So, Bannon would have known him then, but he also would have crossed paths many times before. These two are those kinds of people who live in those shadows, a lot of that time.
Right.
And it certainly would not surprise me to see these two have met each other. But you're right. I think maybe they met in Saudi Arabia. Didn't they meet in Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia? Or was that
Long
that was
time.
that was the other guy. That was, the chairman of the campaign. That was Bannon, that's right, it is
Was
Bannon, sorry,
Bannon? Yeah,
yeah,
Bannon was connected. I mean, and it could be again like the bragging of who is, lots of name droppings, and these
yeah,
guys they love to name drop, but like he was connected with a lot of people. Like, you think now the story of like Jamal Khashoggi has come back to the surface, and we're hearing about like MBS, who's the guy who chopped him up and is now still crown prince of
yeah,
Saudi Arabia, but they were talking about these people all the time back then and their connections with them, and um, yeah, that was a very big connection for Bannon, especially like meeting. He would meet with people, and again, knowing that they were involved in the killing of Khashoggi, like he was still meeting with these people. So yeah,
It's
it's
so
very
interesting
curious.
because Epstein, of course, worked with Adnan Khashoggi, the uncle of
Hmm.
Jamal Khashoggi,
Yeah.
when they were doing arms deals back in the Iran-Contra days, and he also knew MBS. You know, there was Epstein
Hmm.
knew MBS because he said he would come over regularly and they would chat all the
Yeah.
time. I think there's a portrait of MBS in one of the homes. Um,
Mhm.
and Bannon too. I think that's where they met, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was somebody else. Maybe I have to go double check that. But I think they did meet through Saudi Arabia, or at least
Yeah.
have a long history together. So that's interesting. I was going to play a Bannon clip, but I'm actually just enjoying the conversation so much. Let me just show you some other things here.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure. Sure.
Now I went back. You know, I did the Greatest Heist, the second book. Now it's in the third chapter,
Yeah.
and this was me going back to the original Palm Beach investigation and just looking at all the exhaustive work these detectives did in Palm Beach for 18 months. And they packaged all this up and then they get to the court and he gets charged with a single count of solicitation, not solicitation
Right.
with a minor, but just solicitation of a prostitute. And they are like, oh, we give up. You know, he had sent all his
Yeah.
private investigators to intimidate every witness. Some of them arrived pretending to be police officers and they weren't. They were just trying to find out a line of questioning or intimidate them. They basically threatened everybody that if they
Right.
didn't, if they cooperated with the police, they'd pay a heavy price, whatever that might mean. Or if they didn't cooperate, they'd also get rewarded. All the detectives were constantly followed around. It was a very difficult,
Yeah.
difficult investigation. But it's so interesting just to dig around in all of these and find these. And let me see if I can put this in as big a screen as we can because it deserves a good look. I think it's about as big as I can get it, which means I am going to have to just quickly pull it
Oh.
up here.
Oh my.
It's very, very small.
I
But I can
Oh
find it
yeah.
here and I will
I
read
remember
you.
seeing this.
Yeah, these are great. I love the original, like the texture of these documents are so like
Hmm.
they're so yellowed and look like they've been rifled through
Yeah.
so many times. And this is a bit of history here, of course,
Yeah.
because these are the actual images. I wonder if there is a way to do this. Let me see if I can do a better
Like zoom in on it. Yeah, I remember seeing this one.
Yeah, and there's if anyone has the energy to go through them, they're fascinating. They're just fascinating reads. They give you an insight into this moment of time, which is now so important to history. Let me try this. Is this any better? It looks a little cut off, but
Yeah.
it might be a little
Yeah. Yeah,
better.
I think so. Yeah, that's a little better.
So what are we looking at here? This I think is this Dershowitz? I think it might be
This is
Dershowitz
Dershowitz, yeah. Hmm.
talking to. I'm gonna help try pull it up here because I can't. My eyes are not great, so I do it this way. So it says
I can't
here,
wear my glasses because it like reflects off them. So here we go. We'll do this
we can
blindly.
do this. It's okay. So this is an interview with an incident report from the Palm Beach Police Department. They're talking to Dershowitz or talking about their experience with Dershowitz. And I'll just pick up at the second section at the bottom here. It says, to this date, I have not heard from X's parents. This is the second paragraph. I will attempt to establish contact with them during the evening hours. I received a package from attorney Guy Fronstein, which was hand delivered to the police station. Within the package was a letter from Alan Dershowitz and two MySpace profiles. The profiles were of X and X. These are girls obviously involved in this investigation. MySpace.com is a social networking service, well, that's a long time ago, that allowed members to create unique personal profiles online in order to find and communicate with old and new friends. This package was in response to a previous meeting in which Mr. Dershowitz called to assist in the investigation in providing additional witnesses, such as house employees who have been reluctant to speak with law enforcement. That's interesting. I reviewed the profiles Mr. Dershowitz enclosed, who designed so X designed her blog to XX. These names have been redacted. Still attends. It's the school probably,
Yeah.
high school. Sends and receives messages from friends which contain some profanity. So this is Dershowitz trying to basically ruin the reputations of the witnesses
Right.
by
Because they're high school
revealing
girls who are
these
swearing.
MySpace. Yes. Upon reviewing her friends' comments section from MySpace, most of her good friends sent messages to establish contact and invite her to go out. I then reviewed her weblog, was provided by Mr. Dershowitz. Designed blog is called Pimp Juice, of course. So I would try to find something in that. Her blog started that her interests include music theater and weed, marijuana. I reviewed her packet in which, X declares her love for her live-in boyfriend. She also using marijuana with her boyfriend, Will Tucker. Per Will Tucker. Sorry, your name wasn't redacted.
Oh, well, okay.
The
They didn't redact boyfriends' names
yeah.
in any of
uh,
these.
The letter Mr. Dershowitz sent advised he was looking into the allegations that one of the private investigators used through attorneys of Epstein attempted to impersonate or state that they were police officers from Palm Beach. This is what I was talking about. That so Epstein sends out these guys who are investigators, and they pretend to be police officers to intimidate these girls. So Mr. Dershowitz advised that the speech. Okay, so this goes on, but the point here really is none of this is about defending Epstein. It's about
No,
trashing the victims. It's
that's what he
about
does.
it's about tarnishing people's reputations. It's not about actually mounting a defense. And you see this throughout this entire so-called dream team, which I think you pointed out, $4 million later for this
Mhm.
entire defense of Epstein way back in 2006 to 8. And all of it is about attacking everybody else. It's all about let us just, everyone, the
It's
prosecutor's dirty, the witnesses are dirty, but Epstein is a gem of a human being, says everybody,
yeah,
and there's
well,
nothing, and no, did nothing wrong.
I feel like at this point I could give a TED Talk on Alan Dershowitz because objectively, if you looked at that, you would say, you're showing your age that you're picking apart, a teenager's MySpace and trying to condemn them from the dumb things that they said. God forbid he ever comes to get me because I'm sure whatever internet history I have from my teenage years is probably
No
just
one
as bad,
cares what
right?
he says
Yeah,
anymore.
right.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, 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 no. I know, I
He's
know.
done.
His
Yeah,
TikToks are really fun.
yeah,
But like he's such a worthless piece of shit. Like he's just a
yeah.
terrible human being, and he's just an ambulance chaser of the rich and famous and evil, and that's what he's built his wealth on. And he became, he overstepped. If that was just it, he would be a horrible person, but he stepped into the world of Jeffrey Epstein and he became a part of the story. And it's kind of like how you'll always say that journalists should never be a part of the story, they should
Mhm.
stay on the outside. Lawyers, it's probably the same thing, but he became, he got caught up in the glow of the height of the Epstein years and he became part of the story. And of course, and we've talked about this before, where at one point Virginia said, after accusing him of attacking her, she said, "Oh, I was wrong. I misid'd him. It wasn't really him," which sounded, very awkward and unreliable. And we're going, well, she's never said that about anybody before. And then you see in these files that have been released, you find an email from Dershowitz to her lawyer David Boies saying this is what Virginia has to say to retract her statement. And it's the exact same words. And so you see that she was under threat. You see what a horrible person he is. You see that she was telling the truth the whole time about him. And I just I can't take him seriously beyond the fact that he's a pedophile. I can't take him seriously when he gets on TikTok and anything that's good in the world. If we get one good thing that happens in America, he's got a problem with it and he's going
Mhm.
to shoot himself on television or go back to, wherever. And I just can't take him seriously anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it is serious what he did, though. What you're pointing out
Yes.
is true. He's a pedophile.
Yeah.
He took part um, in these actions against these women, and it was awful. And he should be in jail. And it's
Yeah.
amazing to me that he's not. But to your point, he's just such a
He's a waste of space.
what these women went through
Yeah.
throughout this entire ordeal, and some of it has gone on for decades. With a lot of these guys, Boys, you mentioned is another lawyer. I don't trust any of these lawyers around this
No.
world because they're
No.
all in it for the money, to be honest. They're all
Yeah.
just trying to get their piece of it.
Especially if
Very
they jump in and they say, "We're here pro bono."
yeah,
It's usually because they want a story. It
yeah,
helps them more than it helps the victim.
and that's the sense I get from all of these people. So that when I hear, like, David Boies talking about Dershowitz or it's just like it's an inside smear campaign, and a lot of these
Mhm.
women were caught up in with defense attorneys who, sorry, prosecutions as well. Whether they be defense, that'd be their
No,
they'll be
should
their
be
prosecuting. Yeah,
prosecution. Yeah.
there'll be lawyers at least who are not always on their
Hmm.
side. They didn't get their
Right.
fair shake a lot of the time, and it's it's appalling that Dershowitz even gets a platform in some places anymore because
Right.
he is he's a waste of space. He really doesn't need to be
Yeah.
there. He's
Right.
celebrated in any way. And in fact, a lot of these people need to be in jail. These are these are real crimes that happen. People
Yeah.
might think it's a long time ago or whatever, but these are real crimes and people should
Yeah.
be paying the price for them. Here's another one. It's also hard to read. I'm sorry, I should have pushed this out a little bit, but um, this involves, I don't know if you can actually read it. Can you read it? I can't.
Yeah, I can read it.
Okay.
Which one are we looking at?
This
Which
is the
paragraph?
victim. Any of these, just pick a spot. These are the actual documents. So I just randomly picked a few and thought we could just look
Okay.
through them. So just
Do you want me to, I could
just
read
pick a
one if you
spot.
want.
Yeah.
Okay, it says, I then talked to blank about truth and lying. We talked about the color sweater she was wearing. Blank denied having sexual intercourse with Epstein. She denied touching his penis. Blank again admitted to observing Epstein masturbate. Blank agreed to cooperating with the police department in placing a phone call to blank in a controlled setting. I met with blank and advised her of the families as well as blank willingness to cooperate with this investigation. Copies of this interview were placed into evidence.
So interesting. I heard this a lot about Epstein, that his involvement with women was was strange. I mean, he would
Mm-hmm.
masturbate in sort of under towels and was scared
Right.
of showing himself. And some people said maybe what didn't have the biggest penis and also was
No.
embarrassed by it, which is striking for someone like that. But
Right.
it doesn't matter, of course. What these women were put through in these very young ages is not legal, and you can't do this to
Right.
people at this age. Never mind then that's clearly the case here. And it looks to me like what they were doing was trying to do a call to one of the people involved, one of the four women probably
Mm-hmm.
involved in facilitating a
Right.
lot of this inside Epstein's household to try and get some sort of conversation. It's really interesting that this was going on. I think I read this. So I I made contact with ex mother of advised her briefly of my investigation. She was aware of the incident and stated that she overheard a portion of a conversation that her daughter was having with a boy named X, stated that it was her opinion that both girls liked X, recalled hearing her daughter calling X a whore, admitted that she did not listen to the entire conversation, but did confront her daughter about it. I'm not sure what that's in, but these are high school girls, basically,
Right.
from the local high school that have been lured over to this billionaire's home, $200 a pop um, for the massage or so-called massages that they were giving them, and then $200 for the person who was recruiting them. And this is the pattern that
Yeah.
the police, Palm Beach Police Department, and the FBI then pulled together. Is this like if you gave the massage, but then the next thing was if you brought one of your friends over, you would get $200 for the recruitment piece of it, and
Right.
that's how
Yeah, it
they'd
was just a
ingratiate them into the system of
yeah, it was
basically
a pyramid
becoming,
scheme.
yeah, a human trafficking scheme.
Right.
Which is it's just interesting. Here's another. Listen, a 14-year-old, it's worth remembering this as we read this, being interviewed by the police department. Do you want to pick a section? If you want.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is the original like victim number one from the 2006 case because there was a 14-year-old whose mother reported it. So, Detective Dawson and I attempted to contact Blank in Royal Palm Beach. I left my business card at her front door. Blank returned my call and arranged a meeting with me at the Palm Beach Police Department for November 8th, 2005. At approximately 2 o'clock, Blank arrived at the Palm Beach Police Department. She was brought into the interview room and the door was closed for privacy. She was told that I appreciated her coming to the police station for questioning regarding an ongoing investigation. She was told that I was investigating a crime involving Jeffrey Epstein and knew, based on the investigation, that she had encounters with him in the past. During a sworn taped statement, Blank stated that she had met Epstein approximately 2 years ago. She was
Oh,
first
wow.
introduced to Epstein by blank blank Blank, I'm guessing that's Ghislaine Maxwell.
Mhm.
Blank approached her about working for Epstein and provided a massage to him for $200. So it's just kind of your very typical, the story you hear over and over and over again,
Yeah.
which,
But
you know,
if she met at 2 years prior to this, is she
oh
16 here
yeah.
or is she 12? Is that what they're
She
uh
says 14-year-old
yeah,
victim.
yeah. So
Yeah, I
she
don't
would have
know if they met.
12? Ooh.
I mean, that's not unlikely.
Yeah, it's
It
possibly true.
had
It's crazy when you
it
think
had
about it.
happened. Yeah.
In 2005 puts us right after this would have could have been that could have been the original case
Yeah.
that tipped them off right after Donald Trump steals that house and also maybe have tipped them off. It's interesting. It's so interesting to see that come up, and you see the detail there of the $200.
Yeah,
Um,
which is the same thing. And then we finally saw that when, I don't know how many weeks ago it was, when they released the two ledgers that showed two payments to Prince Andrew
right.
for $200 for a massage, that like they literally they didn't even try to hide it in their payments. They listed, this is a massage for Prince Andrew, $200. So,
They
and
thought they
everything
could
else
get
was
away with
checked.
it. I mean, they thought this was going to be
I know.
fine. I mean, that this was just the cover story, and no one would ever touch them. And he
Well,
made.
when all this started, there was no internet. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like they didn't have the ability to send information the way we do now. My guess is if they had, they would have been a lot more careful, but thankfully they didn't. And so now we have all this that they sort of didn't cover their
yeah.
trail.
These reports look like they're written on typewriter. I mean,
Hmm.
that's how long ago this was. Let's see what we got here. So these are the trash pulls. The police department. I know we don't have that much time, but it's just.
Right.
I was asked by Sergeant Daniels something to begin conducting surveillance and trash pulls. Reference detectives Pagan conducting a criminal investigation involving Jeffrey Epstein. I was advised that Epstein was possibly engaging in sexual contact with young females. In 2005, I made contact with the town of Palm Beach sanitation office supervisor and requested trash pulls. On March 11th, 2005, I responded to the area of the house. This is the Epstein place in
Hmm.
Palm Beach, and met with Palm Beach sanitation employee. I observed him entering the driveway into the empty sanitation truck. I followed Williams to a nearby area where he turned over 17 white plastic trash bags, which were collected from Epstein's property. I took the trash bags to the sanitation department where I sifted through its contents. I collected mail correspondence from Armani Exchange addressed, Armani Exchange, interesting.
Interesting.
Jeffrey Epstein note paper with an important message, note papers addressed to,
That's how brazen he was. He's like, I'm gonna contact these girls on Jeffrey Epstein header.
right,
You know
right.
what I mean?
Also, whoever this Peggy Siegel is from US Airways.
She so Peggy Siegel
Mhm.
is, I forget who she worked for. She's his super PR person.
Ah,
And she shows
interesting.
up a lot in these files. She was the person who like marketed him. She is a shady, shady character, and she
Hmm.
comes up a lot more in the course of she's in emails. There's emails from her as well.
Interesting. Let's just finish up
Yeah.
here to see if there's anything else. This Ghislaine Maxwell's name comes up here. So these are food, health department, food services, and then for Janus something and Ghislaine Maxwell note paper with names and phone numbers. Photocopies of the trash collected were attached with the supplement detective. So I mean, these guys
Right.
did a thorough job. It's
They did. Yeah.
they
Well,
really investigated this. Final one here. I don't know if you have to run. I'm sure you do, but
no, no, no. You're good. You're good.
this is about the hidden cameras and photos. I'm trying to.
Yes.
You want to pick a
Which
section there?
she denies. Like, Ghislaine Maxwell denies all the pinhole cameras,
Yes.
other than she said there was a point when they thought an employee was stealing from them in
Mm.
Palm Beach, and so they set them up for
Right.
that reason.
Then it was
But they
convenient.
were they were at every property that Les
Yeah.
Wexner previously owned, which was the Palm Beach residence, it was the Manhattan residence, it was the Manhattan apartments, it was the Ohio compound, because he was paranoid. So he set them up with pinhole cameras all over. So they had access to these cameras in every home and every room.
In every single home. I mean, I think it's so interesting.
Yeah.
And why did Wexner want to have cameras everywhere is one question. But the other question is, why did they live in only Wexner homes? Because at one point I read in Maria Farmer's interview that she said that Ghislaine said flat out they work for Wexner.
Yeah.
And while we knew their association with Wexner, I've never heard "we work for Wexner" as the
Yes.
actual description of what they were doing, and that
Yeah.
is
That is
fascinating to me.
an untold story, an untapped source, that one.
Mhm. Because
I mean, it'd be hard to turn down all those properties that were $1 each. You know what I mean?
why would you get that? Why would you get these dollars for
Right.
one? But and I
Right.
was also struck by the way Maria described the sort of modeling. It started off as just a reconstruction of that mansion, the
Mm.
townhome in New York, and then it evolved into a modeling agency where suddenly all these 14-year-olds were wandering in and out. And also really struck
Yeah.
by something she said, which is that in the divorce between Ivana and Donald Trump,
Mhm.
Jeffrey Epstein got Donald Trump and Ghislaine got Ivana. Now, we know Ivana and Ghislaine were good friends, but we didn't know that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein used to meet at his office and not at the mansion because of that. Because Ghislaine and Ivana used to have their meetings in the mansion. Jeffrey used to meet Donald Trump in the office,
Which was
which
like, I think it was a few blocks north of his house. It was somewhere
at the
on the
Helmsley
east side as
Palace,
well.
at the Helmsley Palace,
Yes.
which
And because I think that when you hear these stories of Maria, when she talks about the only encounter that she had with Donald Trump was when he came to the office, it wasn't Epstein's house, it was
Mhm.
the actual office when he walked in and kind of sized her up, and Epstein says, "No, she's not for you." And then Donald Trump asked if she was 16, and he said no.
Yeah.
So like that's the only interaction she had was at his office. So that would make sense.
But it's that's not a place that people spent a lot of time surveilling. So, the stuff that happened inside the townhome, yes, we know a lot about. What happened in Jeffrey Epstein's office, we don't actually know that much about. There's not a lot of records. There's not a lot of insight into what happened there. And now we found out that Donald Trump was there a lot. Well, what was he doing there a lot? And maybe there's a whole, investigate. I doubt all the records are there anymore, but it would be interesting to see what we can find out about that office and how many times Donald Trump was in and out of there, and whether that was a scene of any criminal activity would be interesting to see.
You
Um,
would have you'd have to get a witness because like if it's anything like his Palm Beach office, which
yeah,
is where he worked during his sentence, right? When he had
mhm,
12 hours a day of work release,
yeah,
all the records were destroyed at the end of
right.
his 13 months. So my guess is there's not a paper trail for that office.
Yes, and also, when Acosta, when they went back and looked to try to find Acosta's emails from this period of time, by the way,
Mhm.
a whole year of emails just had disappeared.
Mm,
These are government records, and they just
right.
disappears. So
Isn't that
obviously,
funny?
there's stuff there. Can you read? This is. Let's see if
Yeah.
we can find anything about the cameras, because I am really interested in where that's mentioned.
Statement. Da, 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 da.
There's
That is
a
hard to
book,
see. Some
first names
copy of
of girls,
messages.
dates, and telephone numbers.
First floor residence, I found okay, here we go. Okay. On the first floor of the residence, I found two covert cameras hidden within clocks.
Mm,
One was located in the garage and the other located in the library area on a shelf behind Epstein's desk. A computer was located which was believed to contain the images from the covert cameras. The computer's hard drive was reviewed, which showed several images of Blank and other witnesses that have been interviewed. All of these images appeared to come from the cameras positioned behind Epstein's desk.
hmm. I don't know if we've seen any police. I mean, we've seen that we knew that those tapes were taken, but I don't recall ever seeing anything like this where they talk about where these cameras were hidden,
Right.
and
We
what
just
they
have a
showed.
list of like the evidence. So there's
Yeah,
a list of like the things they pulled from the house and it talks about VHS, a bunch of VHS
yeah.
tapes, but they didn't say from where.
That's interesting that there were all these cameras. I mean, we've known there were cameras everywhere, but seeing it in black and white like this, or black and
Yeah.
yellow like this, it's interesting. Um, there's an enormous amount of evidence clearly in these FBI files because it includes this. So when you talk about what's in these files and how much evidence there is involving how many well-known people, we're talking, many years, 15 years maybe, of recordings taken from pinhole cameras and other places, of these girls and people. So there are terabytes and terabytes of not terabytes, maybe 300 gigabytes is what they say, but there's a lot of data including video and photos that are going to come out with these Epstein files. And this is just the police, the Palm Beach, report from 2005, 2008. So this is still very early on,
Right.
but it's
And
it's.
you
Go ahead.
wonder of the things that they collected, is that still kept in evidence somewhere? Is that in the DOJ? Did that go back to like the Epstein estate?
All of this
You know?
landed up going to the DOJ files because this became the source material for that prosecution, which landed up with that plea deal. So
Okay.
all of these documents landed up on Marie Villafana's desk
Right.
in Miami when she took over this case. And to writing this about us in the greatest heist, this story of Villafana and her and Nesbitt Kirkendall, the FBI agent who's on this case, is just I wish I knew them and I wish I could reach out to them. I've tried,
No,
and
like
maybe
all of them, I wish I could reach out to.
but it's these two women who are quite the powerful women who are really determined to take on this case, and
Mhm.
they put in so much work. They come up with such a phenomenal indictment, and then they come up against the wrath of Darth Vader himself, Ken Starr, when he arrives, and just tarnishes everything they've done and destroys their reputation. And it was Dershowitz and Black and Starr and Lefkowitz and all these people from that law firm where also Bill Barr worked.
Yep.
You
Gosh,
know,
can you
so,
imagine? Like
yeah.
one big happy family.
And these women, you could tell from the reading between the lines. There's a lot of reading you have to do, but they were so involved and so invested in trying to make this happen and trying to put Epstein
Yeah.
away. And we'll get to it in the next chapter of Greatest Heist, but this battle to try and get just something to stick to Jeffrey Epstein. And then they finally just get that one last thing as they've been shut down from every which way they can. And it's not because the evidence isn't there. It's not because the case isn't solid. It's because Epstein had $4 million to spend on these
Mhm.
high-powered
That was just
lawyers.
Dershowitz. He
Was that
spent
just
more than
Dershowitz?
that.
Or,
That was just Dershowitz. If you look through, there's a list somewhere, and I don't know if it's in these files or somewhere else, but there's a list of all the lawyers and what they were paid. That was just him.
I mean, why would a guy do that if he's just, if he's just had
Mhm.
a, mistaken, romp with a underage girl? No, this is
Right.
he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was covering up. And in fact, he was doing that because he was covering up for the network and he was covering up for the even bigger crime of
Mhm.
what they were doing for 2008, the crash in 2008, which is still where we're getting to in the greatest heist. So, it's quite a story. I know we exchanged some emails the other day, and you were like, "How deep does this really go?" And it's pretty
I'm like, I don't
wild.
know. Am I gonna live long enough to see the bottom of this? Like it's
It's pretty
every
wild.
time I think I've hit the bottom of something, they're like, oh nope, nope, there's another door. Go
It
this
re-
way.
it really is, and it's sort of
Yeah.
it reaches so many different things. So now we've done two sort of time travel bits. One was we went to 2018 and we saw
Mhm.
Bannon and Epstein, was just a snapshot there. And then we went back in time to 2008. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are I really want to finish those emails. It's so extensive. Like I don't know if you've opened up the files that they drop, but they're separated to images, and then in the images there's a folder that's for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. It goes up to like I don't know what number. I'm on folder number 9, and there's so many folders left, and I'm just like, how many more emails could there be? Because they're all out of order. That's the thing. They put a little chunk, and they're from like I keep thinking, oh, I'll just drop what I have on Substack, but then I'll find a chunk that's from a time that started before the first ones that I've already transcribed, and so I'm trying to get them all to just go in order so we can see how this conversation morphed because there are there's so many names in these emails of people that they're trying to get together like I don't know how innocent Bill Gates was after reading all these. They were both Bannon and Epstein were obsessed with the man. And they kept making fun of Melinda because she did not want her husband to have anything to do with Epstein. She knew from the beginning, you do not go near that man. And they were trying to woo him. Like they spent all their time trying to woo Bill Gates, who they call him BG in all the emails. And
That'll
so
be a
I,
fascinating. We should do an hour just on
yeah,
that because I've got so much other history with how they
yeah.
did it and what the implications of Microsoft being compromised. the integrity of Microsoft and Outlook at back then. Remember how many people were using Outlook as their main source of email, and
Right.
it was all compromised through this relationship with Jeffrey Epstein
Right.
and Bill Gates. And but I'm really interested that there's all these
Yeah.
emails about that. That's really
Well, and
interesting.
there's a comedy side of things too, because Epstein didn't expect us to see these emails, and some of the emails he's sending to himself, and it's just an info dump of something he wants to look up later, and it's just a bunch of individual words, and it's all his like penis disease diagnoses and things he's gonna
Really?
like look up on WebMD later
Yeah.
on, but he just dumps all these like individual terms to look up later, and it's sent to himself, and it's just so funny because you can just see him spiraling. He's just absolutely spiraling.
I don't know how he ever thought he was going to recuperate his image. I mean, how he would, and where would you get to the idea that that is even something you could fix? It just seemed
Well, we
like,
see it every day with Trump, right? He
yeah.
lives in his own world, thinks that nothing can go wrong, everything can be fixed, and I think that's a billionaire mentality.
Hmm. Hmm. I,
Yeah,
you know, it's so the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein is so fascinating to me, and of course, it's the core of the greatest
yeah,
heist. But it's like these guys were so good friends. They were such good friends.
right.
They spent all their time together. They did business together with their. We know all the
Yeah,
details of it or not. We will find out sooner or later. They were very, involved with each other, and and Epstein took such great care to know everything about Trump's finances all the time.
mhm,
And he knew exactly how close he was to bankruptcy all the time and just
yeah,
kept him on the edge of that all the time. Because, Epstein
right,
had ways of helping him, he had means to support him. But I think a lot of Epstein's game was, let's just keep him desperate enough for me to get him to do things for me.
right.
And, and
And
I,
I think that's how he dealt with a lot of people, right?
yeah, yeah.
He had that effect on a lot of people.
It's such a creepy, creepy, creepy story, and yet it's still it's fascinating all of us. It's fascinating us.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope it's interesting to people at home. I'm just curious about as we head into this like next stage of this. There's this stuff is going to come out in 30 days. A lot of stuff is going
Yeah.
to come out in 30
I'm
days.
running as fast as I can.
What do you yeah, there's a lot more coming, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
what's your sense
I'm
of what's gonna
terrified. I'm
what's gonna
excited, but I'm
yeah,
terrified
I know.
because
I'm really preparing
um,
myself.
yeah, because it's just going to be the same thing, but like at a massive, massive scale. Like
Mm.
this is 23,000 documents. We're dealing with like 100,000 documents. So um, it's just how much time and effort does it take to really know what's in there and not just like scan it? Because there's a lot of options for people to like, people have created these kind of like digitized sources where you can look somebody up and see where they are in the files, but nobody's reading the whole thing to see
I
what's
know you're the
missing.
only
There's a
one
lot.
reading the whole thing, I think.
Right, right. I know. I'm that
Thank
much of
you.
a nerd that I'm doing this because I'm finding things that just aren't talked about. Like Dean was saying, there's a ton of stuff in there that no one's talking about, and I really just want to find that because I think that's how people get away with stuff. Is it's complicated, it's deep, it's hidden in files, and no one's looking for it, and so they keep getting away with stuff. And I guess I'm just tired of that.
And it's so good that you're doing what you're doing. I use AI a lot for just to try and analyze some of this stuff because there's
Mhm.
so much data. I'm up to 100,000
Right?
documents in my archive right now, and even it's like I don't know. It's like I
Yeah.
don't think I could ever read all that.
It's intimidating.
But the other thing that I find really interesting and very useful, and by the way, I can take a couple of questions if people want to ask us on the chat, is mapping these timelines on top of each other because when you take the court case, the human trafficking court case, and you overlay it over the
Mhm.
2008 crash, and then you overlay that across all over the politics of the time, and the election of Barack Obama, and I was covering that at CBS at the time. For me, it's very interesting to see it through that prism where you're overlaying all these events on top of each other. You learn so much
Right.
more about the context in which they were happening, um, which is so revealing to me. And it's not that long ago. Lots of us will live through it
Mhm.
to recall how it was. Um, it's a question. Where do you get all this data? Says Bob Belanger. Do you want to say that?
Okay. Well, I mean, we could probably put it in the notes, but there's just a link to the House Oversight Committee they have a drive. It's just a Google Drive, which is
Yeah.
kind of funny. But then they have a backup Dropbox, but it's the entire thing is on a Google Drive, and it's just it's in text, it's in images, it's in some other couple of categories, but it's then you open it up and it's just a massive amount of files that you have to look at one at a time and close, and then look at the next one and close. And it's made to be clunky, but they're all in there, but there's no categorization of them, so you can't look up by email, you just literally have to scan through. And so I'm keeping notes about where I'm finding things and like what the file name is, because they're sort of in order, but they're not. Like the numbers will skip and jump. So it's in there, but at least the email part I'll be putting on Substack when I'm done.
It's very it's the more eyes on the stuff, the better off. So if people just want to, as an amateur sleuth thing, if you feel like going to oversight, the House Committee's oversight committee, inside there you'll find these Dropbox and Google Drives, and people should just dive through them. You might find something.
Hmm.
It's like a giant treasure hunt. And as Ellie's
Yeah.
pointing out on her Substack, she's putting the Bannon Epstein files, as it were. Tell the people about how that's going to roll out over the next
Yeah.
period of time.
Okay, so I mean, I'm going to be doing other people as well, because there's a lot of Michael Wolff emails. There's a lot of like Larry Summers emails and Ehud Barak's emails. So I'm probably gonna have smaller files or maybe combo files of certain categories of people and show their email threads. But Bannon's gonna get his own, and it's gonna be like a 10-parter, because I don't think I can put all of it into a single Substack, or
Right.
Substack will start getting glitchy on me. But what I'll do is it will just be in chronological order, and I have the dates for each section. They talk so many times per day, so I'll put the date at the top of the day that they're talking about, and then I'll have a little timeline of when they started talking, 2 a.m., when they finished talking, 5 p.m., and just have
Oh,
that at the
great.
top. And then yeah, and just so you're going to see how long they talked that day, where they were, what they were doing, and yeah,
That's so
I'll do it like
useful.
that.
It's really useful information. Someone's saying here, Watergate was broken through investigative journalism. How's the word of this going to get out? I think it's getting out. I don't think that.
Hmm.
I think that the reason we're at where we're at today, where these files are unanimously approved by two houses, by the House and the Senate. I mean, I think it's coming. I think people, it's certainly an effort of many people who have come together, but it's
Yeah.
coming. It's coming. And people should be really happy that they have been a part of this effort to get this word out, because a lot of the people here on
Yeah.
Substack are the people who've been able to get a lot of this word out. So,
Yeah.
keep it up, everybody.
So
Don't let the guard
a
down. This
lot of
is,
coffee out there
yeah, it's true.
right
It's
now.
important. Is Michael Wolff guilty of relations with girls or young women?
Oh, so far, no. He's just guilty of probably knowing about it and wanting to get a scoop more than wanting to report something that he knew was going on. So he's complicit in he's negligible or negligent. He should have said something a long time ago, but he sat on a scoop hoping he would get some kind of a contract
And
for
no
it
one
instead
wants
of
to
just
publish this
pressing
book.
send.
Yeah.
Right.
Are these files from the estate? A lot of them. Some of the ones we showed you from the
Yeah.
police department were not from the estate, but a lot of them are from the estate.
Hmm.
Um, what else? Let's ask one more here. Cohen has said some things that really leave me curious. Yeah, Cohen's an interesting character for sure. We all have questions. Cohen says it was before his time. Yeah,
Yeah.
look, a lot of these guys at the time they didn't think that this is just the norm, I guess, in that world. So they don't see it the way many of us can see it. So who knows? Maybe there's some latitude there a little bit, but not much. I guess that's it. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight, and thank you, Ellie. It's so great
Yeah.
working with you. Everyone should check out your Substack, which is I'm never going to get this right. Panic's Unpaid Writer.
You
Uh,
got it. You got it.
Ellie Leonard,
There's
although
Ellie Leonard.
she's
Yeah.
not panicked anymore, and you're not
I'm
really
a little
unpaid.
panicked.
A little bit panicked, okay. And she
Yeah.
needs to be paid, so sign up for her
Yeah.
amazing Substack, and a paid subscription there is worth every cent, because she's putting in painstaking work at the craziest hours, because we're sometimes emailing each other really late at night, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what, you just responded? Because we're both sitting around looking
Yeah.
at stuff.
Night
uh,
owls. I have to say too, though,
yeah.
everyone should yeah, they should subscribe to The Greatest Heist, because I'm learning. It's I think your brain works over here and my brain works over here, and when you put them together, it's like the whole entire story. So I'm learning so much about like the financials and the Mossad and the kind of like the history, and that's helping me so much fill the gaps with the side that I'm working on. So I'm really grateful for that because I'm like reading
Oh,
it intently, and I went back and I read it again, and then I listened to it while I was folding laundry, and like I'm just like absorbing this because it makes everything else make sense when
right.
it otherwise
These were
wouldn't.
two sides of an operation. But they were both important. They
Yes.
both kept the
Yeah.
network together. They both gave each other meaning. And what you're about to find out in the next chapters will blow your mind away. So I'm not even going to give it away. But it gets
Okay.
good. It gets really good. So everyone should subscribe to
Oh,
the Greatest Heist and to Ellie Leonard and the Panic Unpaid Writer. Almost a
thank
thousand
you.
people here tonight. Thank you so much for being
Yay.
part of this Substack Live. We'll do this again, I'm sure. I hope you get some
Yeah, for
sleep.
sure.
I know you're busy as
I'm
anything.
taking off the next, what is it? What do we have? Tuesday? I'm taking off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm taking off the next 4 days
Oh,
other than
wow.
Thanksgiving to
You just
just do these damn emails.
Oh,
I
no,
gotta get
you're
'em
you
done.
you gotta have your Thanksgiving.
Oh, I will, I will.
Tell me, are you doing another Substack live in, like, a few minutes from now? Is that right? Or are you at
Yeah,
something
I
else?
think so. I think I'm jumping on with Rick Herbst
Oh
in a
my
few minutes.
gosh. You're a
Yeah.
busy, busy person, so I'm gonna let you get away and, do what you need to do between that. Thanks for being here, Ellie Leonard, and I'm Zev Shalev. This has been Narrative Live on Substack Live. We'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, Ellie. That was great.